Sofia and I had been together for nearly 5 years. Not just 5 years of photos and dinners, but real, gritty, lived-in years. The kind where you survive apartment floods together, where you hold her hair back while she's sick with food poisoning, and where you fall asleep to the sound of her laughter echoing in the hallway because she just saw a ridiculous meme. We met in college, both 22, both stubborn, both convinced we had life figured out. I was studying computer engineering. She was in marketing. What started as a casual hookup turned into long walks after class, weekend movie marathons, and whispered confessions at 2 a.m. Somewhere between ramen dinners and planning our first road trip, we stopped pretending it wasn't serious. We moved in together right after graduation. We were broke, juggling jobs, but happy. I remember once, when we couldn't afford to fix the heater in winter, she built a fort out of blankets and said, "Let's pretend we're camping." That's the kind of woman Sofia was, turning frustration into fun, cold nights into warm memories. Over the years, our life stabilized. I got promoted. She moved into a firm that respected her creative mind. We got a dog. We had our coffee place, our bookstore, even our bench in the park where we'd argue about TV finales and kiss between sentences. We weren't perfect. We had fights. Big ones. We had weeks where we barely touched. But even during the storms, I believed in us. I believed in her. We had talked about marriage, not in a dreamy, far-off way, but in a grounded, let's look at rings this summer way. We'd browsed Zillow together, daydreaming about houses with porches and lemon trees in the backyard. There were names we liked for future kids. There was a shared Spotify playlist titled, One Day. That's why what she said that night cut so deep. It was a Tuesday. I got home a little late, tired but glad to see her. She was curled up on the couch, legs crossed, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. A candle flickered between us. I remember thinking how peaceful the moment looked. I leaned down to kiss her. She gave me a distracted, "Hey, I still on the screen." No smile. No warmth. Something flickered inside me. We sat down for dinner, chicken pasta I had picked up on the way home. She picked at it, barely eating, which was odd because pasta was usually her comfort food. I asked how her day was. She gave short answers. I asked again. And then she looked at me, no warning, no hesitation, and dropped a bomb that would ripple through the rest of my life. I've been thinking, maybe we should try an open relationship. I swear, the world tilted sideways. For a second, I thought I misheard her. I set my fork down. "Come again." She didn't flinch, just met my gaze and repeated it. "I think we should open the relationship. For both of us." I felt my heart hammer against my ribs. Where is this coming from? She shrugged, trying to seem calm. "I've just been reading a lot about relationship dynamics. How sometimes people grow more when they're given space to explore. I love you, but I think we've maybe gotten too comfortable. Like, we're not growing anymore." Growing. That word, it rang so false in her mouth. It wasn't about growth. It was about someone else. So I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Is there someone? A pause. Just 2 seconds too long. Not exactly. There's a guy I've been talking to. Nothing physical. I swear. But he made me realize I've been craving something new. I didn't cheat, Daniel. I'm just trying to be honest with you before something happens. That was worse than cheating. That was premeditation. I stared at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. The woman I planned a future with. And all I could think was, she already left me. She just hasn't walked out the door yet. I stood up, pushed my chair back slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I was too stunned to feel anything clearly. She followed me into the hallway. "Daniel, please don't overreact. This isn't about replacing you. It's about evolving. About being open. You could explore too." I turned around. "Explore? You mean sleep with strangers while we pretend we're still in a relationship? That's not fair." "No," I said, voice shaking. "What's not fair is pretending you didn't emotionally cheat before even bringing this up." She fell silent. And in that silence, I knew something sacred had broken. Not shattered. Just cracked, deep and slow and final. Like ice beginning to break under your feet. The night after Sofia dropped the open relationship bomb, our apartment felt like a crime scene. Not physically. Everything looked normal. The candle still flickered. The dog lay curled up on his bed. The leftover pasta was still in the fridge. But the energy? It was all wrong. Like the soul had been sucked out of the place we built. We barely spoke. I didn't sleep. I lay on my side, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe softly beside me like nothing was broken. I could hear the hum of the city outside, but all I felt was the pounding silence between us. I kept waiting for her to turn to me and say it was a mistake, that she didn't mean it, that it was just a stupid impulse. But she didn't. The next morning, she made coffee. Like it was just another day. She handed me a mug and said, "I know this is hard, but I still want us to try." I didn't answer, because in my head, I was already gone. That same afternoon, I packed a bag. Just the essentials, a few clothes, my laptop, my headphones, my watch. Things that felt mine. I left the shared photos, the mugs we got on our anniversary trip, the hoodie she always stole from me. She saw me packing and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at me with wide, uncertain eyes. "So that's it?" she asked. I zipped the duffel slowly. "No, this is it. What you said last night, that was the end. I'm just following through." She flinched. "I didn't ask for a breakup." "No," I said, standing straight. "You asked for permission to be with someone else and still call me your boyfriend. That's not love. That's emotional insurance." She looked down at her hands. I waited for her to protest, to cry, to beg me not to go. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe we just weren't meant to be forever." I nodded. "Maybe." And I walked out. It was raining. The kind of slow, misty rain that doesn't soak you, just chills you to the bone. I didn't have an umbrella, didn't care. I walked to my brother's place a few blocks away, water dripping from my sleeves, my mind numb. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and just said, "She told you." I froze. "What?" He sighed. I saw something weeks ago. Her texting some guy while you were in the bathroom. It looked off. I didn't say anything. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. I sat down on his couch and said nothing for a long time. Because the truth is, I had known. Not with facts, but with instinct. Little changes in how she looked at me. Less laughter. That distant gaze when she thought I wasn't watching. I stayed there for 2 weeks. During that time, I didn't text her once. She sent a few short messages. "I miss you. Are you okay? Please talk to me." I didn't reply. Because sometimes silence is the loudest response. Then one day, I saw her post a picture, her and another guy, sitting too close in a bar, drinks in hand. No caption. No tags. Just there. The guy wasn't even attractive. That hurt more than it should have. Not because he was better, but because he was nothing. And still, she traded me for that. That's when it hit me. She wasn't looking for better. She was looking for new. Something exciting. Fleeting. Disposable. And me? I had loved her like she was permanent. It was about 6 weeks after I moved out when the first real message came. Not a casual, "Hey, how are you?" Not a just checking in. This one had weight. It was an email, not a text, which told me she needed space to spill more than just emojis. Subject: I messed up. The body was 3 paragraphs long, and in every line, I could feel the panic leaking through. She wrote about how things didn't feel the way I thought they would. How she overestimated what freedom would bring. She talked about late nights that felt hollow, conversations with Evan, the other guy, that were shallow, fleeting. How after the 3rd week, he stopped texting unless it was after midnight. She admitted she thought I would fight for her. That maybe, deep down, she wanted me to be angry, to yell, to argue, to do something that would remind her she was still wanted. Instead, I had walked away. And that silence, she said, was louder than anything she expected. She said she missed me, missed our dog, missed the way I made coffee just the way she liked it, even though I didn't drink it, missed the way I looked at her like she was the most complicated, beautiful thing in the world, even on her worst days. Then came the sentence that stood out more than any of it. I thought I needed something exciting, but I realize now I needed something real. I stared at the screen for a long time, and for a moment, just a moment, the old part of me stirred. The one that had memorized her laugh. The one that still remembered what her shampoo smelled like on a Sunday morning. The one that still had our playlist saved in a folder titled Forever. But then, I remembered the moment she looked me in the eyes and asked for freedom. I remembered how quickly she let someone else start filling in my place. I remembered how alone I felt that night in the rain, carrying my life in a single bag, while she curled up on the couch probably texting him. And just like that, the stirring stopped. I didn't respond. She followed up 2 days later, this time with a voice note. Her voice cracked midway through it. She was crying. "I didn't think it would feel like this," she whispered. "I thought I was being brave. I thought I was choosing honesty. But I wasn't. I was being selfish. And I see it now. I really do. Then she said the words I never thought I'd hear from her. If you don't want to come back, I understand. But I just needed to say it. I love you. And I'm so sorry. It was genuine. It really was. But it was also too late. By then, I was already seeing someone new. Not seriously, just coffee dates, long walks, sharing stories about past scars. But even those small things felt clean, uncomplicated, honest. This new woman, Melissa, asked me once if I believed in soulmates. I paused, then said, I used to. She smiled and said, maybe that just means you believed in the wrong one. And maybe she was right. Because love isn't supposed to feel like a test you're constantly failing. It's supposed to feel like home. And Sofia? She burned ours down with a match she called growth. Time didn't heal everything, but it gave me the space to learn how to live again. After Sofia's voice message, after those last words, I'm so sorry, everything went quiet. I expected follow-ups. A second wave of guilt. Maybe even a surprise visit. The kind people make when they realize they've burned down their own life and want you to pull them from the ashes. But none of that came. She disappeared. And maybe that was her final gift to me, the space to grow without interference, to rebuild without her shadow lingering in the corners of my day. In the beginning, I kept waiting for sadness to crash over me again. You know that delayed wave of grief that hits you while brushing your teeth or waiting in line at the grocery store, a memory blindsiding you so hard you forget where you are? I braced for it. Every day. But it never came. Not like before. Instead, I started noticing small things. The quiet was different now, not threatening, but calm. My chest didn't feel tight when I opened the closet and saw her old scarf still hanging there. I didn't scroll through old pictures at 2 a.m. I didn't need to know what she was doing or who she was with. Her story no longer involved me, and I didn't mind. That realization was the first real sign I was free. I started making new routines. Early morning jogs before work. Long phone calls with my parents, the kind I used to avoid because I'd never had time. I got a bike. Started cooking from scratch. Spent Saturdays at the farmer's market talking to strangers about coffee beans and homemade jam. There was no reason for any of it, except that I wanted to. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just living. And then came Melissa. She was patient, steady, honest without trying to impress. We met through mutual friends, and at first, I kept my distance. I was cautious, even guarded. I didn't want to be someone else's safety net, didn't want to carry old wounds into something new. But she never pushed. She never asked me to heal faster than I could. Instead, she listened. She let me talk about things most people don't want to hear. About how it felt to be discarded. About what betrayal does to a man's identity. About how terrifying it is to trust someone again. She didn't offer advice. She just heard me. That kind of presence is rare. We began spending more time together. Long walks. Late dinners. Laughing at stupid TV shows while we shared a blanket and a bottle of wine. There was no grand spark, no cinematic love at first sight. But there was something better. Peace. One night, as we sat on my balcony watching the city lights flicker, Melissa turned to me and asked quietly, "Do you still think about her?" I didn't lie. "Sometimes," I said, "but it doesn't hurt anymore." She nodded, then leaned her head on my shoulder. And in that moment, I realized something. Sofia had once told me she needed to explore who she was, to grow, to breathe. But what she never understood was that real freedom isn't abandoning what grounds you. It's choosing to bloom where trust and love are rooted. She chased excitement. I chose stillness. And in the end, I got everything she was searching for. One morning, I found myself standing in the mirror. Shirtless, messy hair, brushing my teeth, nothing glamorous. But I paused and looked at my reflection. There was something different. I looked like a man who'd been broken and had built himself back stronger. Not angrier. Not harder. Just wiser. The pain no longer controlled me. The memory no longer defined me. Sofia wasn't my villain anymore. She was just a chapter once survived. And peace? Peace came when I realized I didn't have to win. I didn't have to show her anything. I didn't need to love louder or move on faster. I didn't have to compete or replace. I just had to let go and mean it. Because the truth is, love doesn't beg. Peace doesn't chase. And healing never happens for revenge. It happens when you remember your worth doesn't come from someone staying. It comes from knowing you'll still stand when they walk away. And I did. I stood. And then I walked forward. Not for her. Not for anyone watching. But for me.